Critical EDH, A New Hope.
All right.
Speaking of A New Hope, I feel like the deck on the green screen behind us, Rog Thrass, has kind of recently come to the front of the CEDH scene. Because historically, like it's been a part of CDH for a while. Because I mean, way back when it used to be like a polywog deck, right?
Polymorph.
Ooh.
Divergent transformation deck.
What's that red planeswalker? Is it like
Luca?
Luca Bound to Ruin or something like that?
No, it's like Copper Heart.
Oh, Copper Coat Outcast?
Yeah.
and then I think kind of the like Sam Black kind of bouncy house style, like Otter Tribal. And then recently, I know this deck kind of almost dropped red and just basically went into Simic with a few exceptions. Is I think where it kind of like resurfaced on a lot of people's radars.
I think the deck struggled from a identity crisis problem for a while. It just tried to make infinite mana, and like that was fine, but it's kind of like you just jam Kinnan and Basalt into the 99 and you try to find it. And like it's not that good because you don't really have good tutors for Basalt. Like I mean it's okay, and like it doesn't have the staying power of like Kinnan in the command zone. So the deck was kind of struggling for a while, and then this very strange set called Bloomburrow came out, and we got a lot of tools. I think I learned that Song of Totentance was Wilds of Eldraine, but. We have all the Valley Flood Color and the rats and birds and frog synergy.
Squirrels.
Otters.
So
yeah,
good.
squirrels.
Dude, I can barely believe how like good that deck is. That list.
Yes.
That set. That
What are you talking about? You're talking about the Bloomburrow set?
Yeah, it was low-key actually pretty busted. Like, I was like, oh, it's just going to be a bunch of random squirrels and otters. This set won't break CEDH. And then, wow, Valley Flood Color gets printed, and it just breaks all of these cards, because in the set there was also Enduring Vitality,
right,
which does great with the untaps.
I thought Enduring Vitality was Duskmourn.
Was it?
I think so, because you also have like the Enduring.
Oh my god, this is product fatigue
There we
as
go.
yes. This is product fatigue.
CEDH players.
I don't care. I was right about something for the first time. Don't take this away from me. I think Bloomburrow for me was one of the sets. Like okay, before like Modern Horizons 3, like everyone was blowing up all over the place. Before the set even came out, like this card is cracked. Like not just Nadu, but like a bunch of other cards. But I feel like with Bloomburrow, we have been kind of like unraveling the set in CDH in the months past. And seeing that it really kind of provides a lot of different angles for CDH players to slot cards into their decks and gain advantage in ways that you can see aside from like just casting a ton of Rhystic Studies.
It's super weird, and we've talked about this sort of archetype where decks don't really do anything until they do something and then they win, or like they're able to pile enough advantage where it's unstoppable. And I think this is one of those decks. But it almost feels like we're playing. It used to feel like we were playing like vintage in Commander, where we're just trying to combo off and trying to win. Now it kind of feels like we're playing standard in Commander, because like we're piecing like these combo pieces together from like these standard sets that are like Enduring Vitality plus Valley Flood Color. Like they're both standard legal, but they're strong, but they're not like inherently that strong unless you add a bunch of other like mana rocks and stuff. And like I don't know, it's kind of odd. Like I think the goal and like the outlook of these deck building styles are changing quite a bit.
It definitely is interesting to me coming from like Rog Sai and TNK. You know, we were talking about do I play Praetor's Grasp, or do I play an extra wheel, as opposed to we both have been playing Rog Thrass a little bit here and there, but we both recently have put lists together, and now I'm like, oh, do I play Chatterstorm or Song of Totentance?
Yeah, for sure.
Which is not a decision I expected to be making in 2025. But I think that while there are a lot of super duper great Rog Thrass pilots out there, and there are definitely a few archetypes that are seeing some success right now, I'm a huge fan of this one because it was kind of premiered by a Denver local pigeon. who did really, really well with it at Fishbowl. And I love getting to see him bust this deck out either online in games or at level 7 tournaments because it always seems to be doing something.
And to be clear, he got second at Fishbowl.
Second, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, not to take away from what you're saying at all, but he almost clinched the win. Like it was right there with everything else. So
I mean, top 4 at a 300 player event. You know, that's pretty prestigious.
it's pretty good. Yeah.
We've referenced it on the channel before, but MTG Basics did an interview with Pigeon, who is an MTG Basics guy, about his experience at Fishbowl, and would highly recommend, if you're interested by anything we talk about today, go check out that interview.
Absolutely.
So what has your experience been with Rog Thrass? Because I know just kind of playing with you in pickup games here and there, it seemed like this was a deck you kind of had in your back pocket whenever you wanted to be off TNK, but it seems like this style of Rog Thrass isn't necessarily what you were playing like a few months ago.
Not for sure. That's definitely not what I was playing. So like I picked up this deck like 2 months before the bans, and all I did was Dockside clones, Dockside tutors, Dockside tutor clones, and I made as
cool.
many.
I have an outlet in the command zone.
As many Doxes as I could have. Cloudstone Curio, Teamer Sabertooth, all the outlets. Lily Splash Mentor was a new one too, right before the bans.
Yeah, and then you still played Kinnan, I'm sure.
Kinnan,
just because
Basalt.
you double your treasures and like that worked at the time, kind of, but it was not the best Dockside deck around because you didn't have the black tutors for it.
For sure.
But like that goes back to me saying like it had kind of an identity problem at the time where you had a technically competent deck, but it was like really not the best. It was kind of like okay. It was like a very middle of the pack deck, and it was like. I don't know. I always got the feeling playing the deck. It's like me stupid. Me make lots of mana. Me put mana into Thrasios. Me draw a card or land. And then like I don't get there. And I'm like, okay, guess I didn't have it this time.
Yeah, I know.
But now I think there's a lot more thought being put into the deck. And I think that's being expressed by like these new cards that are being included where you kind of just have like more like land synergies and like creature synergies.
I think that's the biggest shift from like pre-ban. It's like it was more Dockside centric, and now it's just a lands matter deck, right? Or more realistically, it's how big can you get your cradle to be, and how much can you make it tap for?
Yeah, because historically, exactly like you were talking about, it was operating the axis of what cards are you looking for. You're looking for Dockside plus Cloudstone, right? Plus Teamer Sabertooth. And you're in this format with other behemoths, like Sisay, who's super well at the time was able to take advantage of Dockside or these other decks. But now, as we need to find other ways of getting mana advantage, I think the only other deck that is able to really take advantage of Guy's Cradle in the same way is Derevi, potentially. I don't know if there's other decks that really like push it to the limit as much as Rog Thrass does. I'm sure. I'm trying to think.
As far as like big mana decks,
yeah. Or deck,
I mean, Kinnan's a big mana deck. It's not like Cradle reliant.
Yeah, it's not cradle reliant. I think the biggest cradle.
I don't think Kinnan runs like Expedition Map, do they?
No. I don't. I mean, their dorks tap them so I don't think they need that.
But I think
I guess Derevi's a good point. I think Tevish Thras is maybe lurking a little bit behind this deck, trying to do the same thing. Doesn't have sort of the explosivity, but maybe it has better tutors. And that's a good point. Like this is the Cradle deck, so like counter the Crop Rod, counter the. I guess you really can't counter the Sowing Microspawn.
It's strip mine. We need to be strip mining these cradles.
The emphasis on Cradle both seems to have given the deck some of that specificity, some of that zhuzh that it was missing, but also it gave it an axis unique enough that it was able to propel itself ahead of other decks.
You're not having to high roll a Dockside anymore, or having to have the combo pieces to combo off with Dockside. Now you're just making creatures on your own volition, regardless of what everyone else is doing, and then having those creatures enable Cradle or things like Earthcraft, where you can tap those creatures, untap a land, that sort of thing.
And your spells feel awful for other people to counter. Like, who wants to mental misstep an expedition map? Who's out here trying to force a will in a Borrow Breeze collar? But they both so quickly can lead to infinite mana. And
Well, not infinite.
Very,
a lot. Do you want to talk about some of the games you've been playing and like how those you're finding that like the deck plays out and why you're, because I think your perspective is super interesting because you're a really good player, you're near the top of the leaderboards, and you're largely known for playing a deck that doesn't do this thing at all.
Sure. I mean, like, going from T and K, right? You've got only good cards in the deck. If I'm being completely honest, and then you shift your focus towards this deck, it's like pretty much all bad cards except for Seedborn, Displacerkin, Valley Flood Caller, and Underworld Bridge.
Right.
Yeah, you're forced to play like these really terrible feeling cards by themselves, but the synergy among all of them together is the greater. It's a greater sum of its parts.
Yeah, greater than the sum of its parts. And you say the word forced to play, but I think you're almost incentivized to play these cards that don't look like they're doing anything because you're like, okay, well, I'm going to Chatterstorm, we're going to make 6 squirrels or whatever.
Yeah.
And everyone
You're
goes...
gonna mind break that?
Yeah, or you're going to fluster the Chatterstorm? Like, it doesn't really... Like, that's a problem for later, right?
It kind of comes back to, like, what you were saying about Glarb, right? Where you're playing just enough pieces, good enough pieces where they'll propel you into the game, but they're not good enough to counter.
Yeah. I had a Seedborn interaction the other night where I was playing Glarb, and this is an example of what you were just talking about, where I played a Seedborn off the top of my library, and someone went to counter it, and I said, I have 3 counter spells in my hand. Are you going to take me off my interaction? Because all my Seedboard does is untap my lands. It's not representing any additional card draw or anything like that. And they go... yeah, like okay, that's fine. I was like, I'm trying not to lose the player across from me. Like, you know, give me the window to stop or like help out. This deck attacks that from a different axis, but it's largely the same feeling as an opponent, where you're disincentivized to counter or interact at all because you're like, I'm just making creatures or I'm just like making mana. Like, what are you gonna do about it?
Which I don't think I fully understood until I started putting this list together, because Pigeon, for instance, is on Thundertrap Trainer, and I was looking at and I was like, why this card? Why don't I just like do Mystical Tutor or something else? Like, why this card?
Mystical Tutor bad. You heard it here first.
But then you start like playing the deck and you realize that every card, well, one, if it's a creature, gets your Cradle count higher, which is... it seems like really simple to say, but until you play the deck or you play against it, I think it's really hard to conceptualize just how much mana Cradle makes. But also cards like Thundertap Trainer are also, you know, how many times can I say the words "are also" in a sentence? Are also built around kitten interactions, which is another huge combo that this deck does. Is it can, like, basically every card in Pigeon's list, if bounced with kitten, can keep that manual storm going.
The thing that really interests me about this list is that it runs 3 wheels, and that tells me that this list will get there regardless of whatever happens. It has the tools to just go, well, this hand doesn't have it, I'll try for a new one.
Here's the next one.
I don't care what anyone else is going to draw, because if they draw something good, it just means I have more mana, I have more cards, I have more tools and resources to just do my own thing.
You know what this deck doesn't run? Win cons.
I see one.
We were talking about this the other day. I think traditionally, a lot of Rog Thrass players right now, the most consistent win cons are Finale of Devastation and Fairy Mastermind.
Brain Freeze. Brain Freeze Wheel.
Or Brain Freeze Wheel. Yeah. So none of those say win the game on them.
Nope.
And only one of those, or 2 of those, I guess, can be done at instant speed, assuming you have a Flash Enabler.
I get asked that a lot about Glarb, where I just run Thassa's Decon and like Tainted Pact.
How do you win?
Yeah, it's like that's how I win. And then like if I get stopped with that, I'll either try to find backup to do it again, or I'll steal something from somebody else, or I'll just win in these like pseudo non-deterministic ways by using a bunch of the other pieces in my deck to piece something together. Whether in that deck it's like Mnemonic Betrayal or something like that, like make the game last long enough to win with a meme bet. And this deck, I can already see just by the list, like you're just trying to not die and trying to make mana, and you'll make more mana than anybody else. Yep. And by that time, you're like, how does anyone stop you?
Yeah, you just acquire so much advantage in so many different ways. One of the things that interested me in picking up this list was a conversation with you about is actually very similar to what you were talking about earlier, Jason, where you have these decks like T and K that are historically just so packed to the brim with the best of what they do. And so while it does have internal synergy, one of the biggest similarities between all the cards in T and K is just how efficiently costed and good they are.
Generically good cards.
As opposed to your Glarb list, while it does have good cards, for instance, like Mnemonic Betrayal or Seedborn, it's not a Seedborn deck.
No.
Right? It's not like the goal of the deck isn't to turbo out like a Mnemonic Betrayal or something. The goal of your Glarb list, and definitely correct me if this isn't the best way to say it, is seem to, as best as possible, interact or be able to avoid interacting with the table, so that whenever you're in this mid-range slogfest, you have all these little tools of, a twiddle here, a Sensei's Divining Top there, of coming out on top at the end. And one of the easiest ways to do that is your spells suck to counter.
Or you don't even cast spells.
Yeah.
Like in this deck, you're just tapping things for mana, pump it into Thrasius. I draw a card, or I put another land on the field, and like your opponents are just going to stare at you and go like, okay, and you're like, yeah, I'm not triggering study, I'm not doing anything, I'm just
that, or they can just cast Chromox and pay for the studies to replace because their flood color just makes 20 mana.
Oh my god, it's so crazy. But you built your deck not around cards, like Kin and Basalt. You built it around like Noxious Revival, right? And it seems like Pigeon and a lot of the Rog Thrass community, I wouldn't want to boil the deck down to just one pilot, but a lot of the brewers right now seem to be moving towards that same strategy of finding these cards that really excel in the mid-range or help cards like Guy's Cradle shine.
We're going to be so cooked if this strategy ever comes to T&K. If anyone's able to put a T&K list together that appears like it's doing nothing all game, and then just goes, well, here's the most protected win I have. Like, I know the deck is not really capable of that, but like, this archetype is legitimately fucking hard to deal with.
It's gas.
It's gas, but it's also like trash. It's like the deck is S plus tier. Like, it's to me, it's the third best deck in the
trash
format.
is gas.
Yeah,
but like
it's fire, baby.
I mean, and the best card in the deck is like a B minus, but everything together is like, wow, this is S tier.
Yeah, it's so cool, and it's so hard to underestimate just how much fun it is to play.
For sure,
you get to do absolutely crazy stuff, and there's so many little niche or wonky interactions that as a pilot, even after just playing it for a week or two, I feel like I'm at the bottom of Mount Everest.
You know what it's like? It's like you're looking at like a Pablo Picasso painting, right? But you're zoomed in on like just like a single brushstroke, and you're like, I could do that, right? And then you zoom out, and you're like, wow, this is totally different. Like this whole picture just makes sense, or maybe in his case it doesn't. But it's just a super interesting.
I also think it's really cool to see a deck doing so well that's not running 8 copies of Rhystic Study.
Oh, thank God.
Right? Most Rog Thrass lists right now, they aren't copying Enchantment, they're not on Clever Impersonator, they're not on Steel Enchantment, because they have found a way of making it to the top of the mid-range pile without them. And I just think that's cool. I think that's interesting.
Me too.
Fellow Rhystic enjoyer.
Yeah, and I love Rhystic. Like, T&K is my other favorite deck in addition to Loomer. I think it's so much fun to have this, like, in the game we were in the semifinals with. All of us had Smothering Tithe. While it did make for a really long game, at the very least I thought it was interesting. That can't be said about every game.
I could not imagine giving this deck a tithe.
Four Smothering Tides in play was
so we've talked a little bit about Pigeon's deck and the deck list in general. Do you want to talk about like some of these sort of like you had mentioned Valley Flood Caller, and it's like sort of incidental synergies. Do you want to talk about some of those and kind of go over like what makes up the meat of this deck and sort of the play patterns?
Sure. I mean, like we can look at all the creatures that get untapped from Flood Caller, because you can retap them using Enduring Vitality. And
so let's go over what
sure.
Let's go over what Enduring Vitality does.
It gives all your creatures the ability to add 1 mana of any color, which might not seem that crazy because like stuff like Cryptolith isn't even being played right now in this format, but this is a creature you can tutor it out.
I think a lot of decks might end up on Cryptolith, right? Just on the off chance that you draw it.
Like Morris Cards is on Cryptolith right now.
Okay.
He's going all in on tokens.
Yeah, it seems like a good card, and the cool thing about these archetypes, because they're so middling with their cards, you can have all of these. You have a deck full of like flex slots. You can run these disparate strategies, still have the same end goal, and you go, oh, you're playing like the new Rog Thrass archetype, but like your list might be 30, 40 cards different than the other one.
Yeah, which is fun to be a part of. I mean, it's really like there's no way you can play TNK and have 30 flex slots.
No,
that's
yeah. So you basically turn all your creatures into dorks, and then with Flood Caller and some non-creature spells, the pertinent card types untap, which would be otters.
Something that might actually be better than Vitality is the Earthcraft in the enchantment section too, because it
jumping around here.
It bypasses the summoning sickness, like that whole fiasco.
Because it's the ability of Earthcraft.
Yep.
So you're able to tap creatures, untap a basic land. I think this deck runs, generally speaking, two.
Yeah, island and forest, and then you have the other enchantments, Wild Growth and Utopia Sprawl, to attach to them, and those are almost like what Kinnan provides to other decks, except who's gonna counter your Wild Growth or your Utopia Sprawl?
Like you can't OBM my Piss Forest from Aether Drift.
The meme of the guy just holding the steering wheel. Yeah.
It's just not possible. And so it's so interesting. And I still am learning just how powerful untapping your Thundertrap Trainer after casting a counterspell is. Because you think like how many non-creature spells do I cast? Or Kitza. Oh, Kitza, baby.
Go.
Dude.
Well,
I will die in her arms.
You want to talk about like a Song of Creation and sort of how...
Yeah, this deck almost functions as a Teamer Storm deck. Even without Song of Creation in play, you pump mana into Thrasios, cast a spell, Valley Flood Color trigger, untap, and do it again.
And then Song of Creation is probably just an extra way to get there.
Oh yeah, this makes it a lot cleaner to get towards the end state where everyone's just cooked and you're not.
It's so like so in a previous episodes, one of our iterations of keeping tabs on CDH, we talked about the value of Voice of Victory, this new Tarkir card, because it lets you signal to the table, you have to deal with me right now. Right? I don't care how many Mystic Studies you have. I'm trying to win right now. You need to do something about it.
Are you talking about the new Grand Abolisher effect from Tarkir?
The new Grand Abolisher effect from the new Tarkir.
Yeah.
Song of Creation is very much one of those. It just gives you so much value over the course of a turn that you kind of have the ability to accrue a ton of value, and then while these other decks are still trying to like greed their way to the end game, say like, okay, is it okay if I just like win?
So Song you discard at your end step?
At the beginning of your end step.
Okay, so like I can see the fail state with this deck with Song. Like generally the fear with Song, right, is that you play it and you pseudo storm off, and then you go, oh geez, I can't anymore. And then you discard your hand, and then you don't have anything to do.
When you get to that fail state, that is like 1 out of 1,000 games
in this deck.
Just because you make so much mana, it's almost
and then you also have
impossible to
cards like
fail.
Seedborn, which allow you to untap, and you go, okay, well maybe I'll just start drawing cards with Thrasios again, then I can start the Song train again.
Yeah, time to just like Thrasios my hand right back to 7 cards again.
Yeah.
And
so I can see how Song is particularly good in this deck, and it makes a lot of sense.
The one thing that scares me about this deck, I haven't had this experience yet, but I just know, I know it's going to happen at EG. this deck is designed to have its like back blown out by Culling Ritual. Like, everything in this deck is like 2 mana and under. And I don't know if it's just because there's a lot of Sultai in Denver right now. Well, I just know we're gonna be in a pod, and you're gonna say, guys, we can't let this Rog Thrass player do it. I'll say, I'm just a little guy. My commander casts 0 mana, and you're like, well, what about all the 8,000 mana you produce? I'm like, okay, and then you'll make 8,000 mana off a Culling Ritual.
I think the card you need to be more afraid of is Massacre.
Oh no!
Because I've been talking with the Glarb Discord a lot about this card, and it's a free -2/-2 board wipe on all creatures, and this deck does not like that very much.
Oh man!
And like they keep trying to convince me to take it out. I'm like, no. There's Rog Thrasses running around. There's Tymnas running around. Kinnins, Sisseys, Magdas. Like, no way. I'm not taking it out. So
wait till I sack Rograk to copy that Massacre.
Do you think that kind of like what we saw with Nadu in the past, especially, certainly before the bans, because it was banned, but like we saw with Nadu before, how the meta started to shift around, like, oh, maybe we should run more like Blasphemous Axe and stuff like that. Do you think that this deck is kind of poised to do the same thing?
What do you think, Jason?
I think right now sweepers actually could be super backbreaking because no one's willing to counter a sweeper at this point, right? And if you fight over the sweeper, you just win on top.
Or you just make people draw cards with heuristic.
Yeah, that too.
Are we going to see Supreme Verdict in TNK?
Ooh, I used to do that with Boromir because you just sack Boromir, make all your stuff indestructible, and it's uncounterable. Supreme Verdict.
Supreme Verdict, I think, is a very cool card, and would blow out decks like this because then you go, I don't know what to do. Like
uncounterable, you say?
I think it is that aspect, like the potential of decks to throw in just 1 or 2 cards, especially like, for instance, like Toxic Deluge is the most tutorable card in like blue farm, and a lot of decks are like already running it or Fire Covenant. I think that reaction by CDH players and the decisions they make in their decks is what's going to decide over the course of the next month if Rog Thrass has what it takes to kind of hang in the top 3.
The deck just bounces back so well. It just plays so much bullshit. It throws. It's like, you never see that comic that it's like he's throwing a bunch of stuff, like, and he's like, random bullshit, go. Like, you just like you're throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, and like if it doesn't stick, you're like, oh no, I'm reset. Like, I have to dig myself out a little bit, but you dig yourself out so fast. I think the deck has really good staying power, especially in the meta. In the current meta,
I think it, especially in this moment in time, is very well situated to take advantage of a lot of things that make CEDH right now.
There was this point where I said that this deck had an identity crisis, and I have this deck together, at least the older version, or had it together. I think that's what you cobbled together your list from, right? Was my old one.
I think we both started with Pigeon's list, actually.
No, but you like physically took the cards from my...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, it's the I pulled your list out.
You robbed the corpse.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was like, where am I going to find a candelabra at?
So you pulled out my old deck, which was like, the Kinnan Basalt list, and he's like unsleeving it, and he's like, okay, I need these cards, I don't need these cards, and he goes, here, and he like hands me a pile of like fucking 50 cards, and he's like, I don't need these. And I'm like, bro, I can't believe how much the deck has changed since that. But back then I think the deck was okay. It just kind of struggled from this like, well, I need to make infinite mana, and if I can't do that, I can't win. Now the deck doesn't really make infinite mana, but makes a lot, and it's like winning all the time, and it's winning. So I think the deck is kind of more on the figured out side than it is on the like, I don't know who I am phase.
Bloomburrow the deck.
So as someone who is, you've played a lot of decks, and you've especially played in a lot of tournaments, Jason, what are some aspects about this deck that you may lead, or that may lead to people really wanting to pick this up and take it to maybe their locals? Or what are things that, depending on someone's play style or deck preference, may make them want to, at least for now, skip the Rog Thrass bandwagon?
It makes a lot of mana, and turns out just having a lot of mana fixes a lot of your problems in the game.
It really does.
Well, I think one of the things you're alluding to is like what would push someone off from playing this style, and I think
Sure,
the main thing is there's just too much to track.
There's a lot of triggers you need to keep track of, and honestly, some people just don't like drawing bad cards.
Yeah, it's a lot. You have to be ready for it, right? You have to be emotionally prepared for when someone casts a silence and one of your opponent says, "I'm going to cast a bunch to draw you cards off your wrist stick," and you say, "Okay, I'm here," and then you draw Chatterstorm, you draw Wild Growth, and they say, "Did you draw anything?" Like you have to emotionally be ready for that.
The other thing is that like the lines aren't inherently like obvious to start piecing together when you first play it. So you might be like, "Oh, what is Chatterstorm doing in the deck?"
Well, also it's not A plus B. It's A plus B plus C plus D plus E, and then you go ooh, and then there's like 3 options for each of A plus B plus B.
Exactly.
It's you're piecing a jigsaw puzzle together versus just like, oh, I found Thoracle Decon.
Yeah, I think that's like the best way to describe it is that you don't have bread plus butter. You have like 20 different ingredients
you have
to make a
salt,
sandwich.
you have unchurned milk, you have yeast and like fucking rye and like like the ingredients, but you got to make the sandwich.
Yeah, it's like this is the deck equivalent of like opening your fridge and going,
It's like I went shopping a week ago and like some of this stuff is like expired and like I got to figure out what I can make for a meal.
Yeah, like you have like all this mana and all these creatures on board, and your opponents who are frustrated with you for manual storing for 30 minutes are like, "Can you win?" And you're just there like, "I think so."
Do you think that this is one of those decks where you just win by like opponent concession a lot?
Oh, yeah, because your opponents get bored after like 20 minutes of you being like, "Yeah, I have like 300 mana floating. I'm activating Thrasios. And, I'm casting this Chromux. I'm gonna untap my 20 birds and I'm gonna tap them again. Do you guys want me to actually play it out?"
Eric and I have had this conversation a lot about the win conless CDH deck where we play like a, let's say,
Glarb.
Oh, come on, dog.
Oh, don't say it out loud.
You play like an Esper deck, right?
Yeah.
And you go, okay, here's a Grand Abolisher. Can you deal with it? Yes or no? And you go, cool. I have a Demonic Tutor and I have a Wish Claw. I'm going to find Thassa's in Decon, and then win the game. And then your opponents go, well, okay, I'll scoop. But like Thassa's Decon's not in your deck, right? Like this is not a case like that, but you can easily present a state in which you don't actually ever need to find your finale, because you go, I just have finale in my deck. I'm going to finale for 300,000 or whatever. And then your opponents go, oh, okay, well, I can't do anything about that. So yeah, I think I experienced a little bit of that on Karkashai this weekend, because I stormed off, made like 40 treasures, had a face breaker, and I was like, I'm just going to draw 40 cards or whatever. And
Exile.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Doesn't trigger OBM, okay, bro?
Dude, that's so real.
Yeah, it's like I have the tutors. I'm going to present a breach line. Here's all the stuff I have. And then like you talk through it, but you don't actually play the cards.
Yeah.
So I think that deck is going to follow into that a little, like quite a bit.
Potentially. I think that like, right. You talking about that dynamic of one of the most powerful dynamics that a deck can bring to the table is the ability to influence just based off the potential of what you have in your hand or in your deck. And so if you don't have to cast spells, like if you don't have to cast a counter spell to prevent your opponents from playing things, if they're just scared enough that you're going to counter them, or if they're just like afraid that if they start trading Ristics with you, you're going to get super far ahead, you're able to exert very, very powerful influence over the board without having to cast anything. And so a deck that gives you as many options as this and as many avenues towards progressing towards that mid and late game as this deck does, gives you a lot of ways, I think, to exercise soft influence over the table.
The Rog Rack in the deck gives a lot of speed too, and early turbo defense is neat because you can go. Well, I have Fierce Guardianship, I have SWAT.
That was so nice.
Flare.
And Flare.
Flare's like the best card in Magic right now, I feel like.
But also, like, do you think the
Hot
deck?
take.
I haven't played
Second
this
only to
archetype.
Kitsa.
I haven't played this archetype yet of the deck. I haven't played the new iteration, but like, do you think the deck is pretty stacks resilient as well?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when you make a lot of mana, it solves a lot of your problems. This deck doesn't really fold to Rule of Law because you just activate Thrasios if that's the case.
What about like things like Graph Digger's Cage or Weathered Runestone?
That's okay. Thrasios just puts the cards in your hand. And even if you get like the
tutors.
battlefield tutors too, like you don't have to necessarily use them to tutor out stuff. You like I said, you have a lot of mana. You just eventually find answers or you find problems.
Make new problems.
I definitely think that there's no like single stacks piece that this deck is really, really afraid of. Right?
Curse
So for instance,
Totem is pretty good.
I think that's the best way against it, but Earthcraft
helps.
just makes so much mana.
and it doesn't like do anything with kitten lines, right? If you're just like bouncing a bunch of staff, or
Like-
any of these kind of like
I guess like
transforming ones.
untapping your rocks with Kitten.
Not
but-
to say that like turning off Thrasios is like a big problem, or if someone plays like a dampening sphere and suddenly your guy's cradle taps for 1 colorless mana, that is a bit of a problem. But you do have like it doesn't mean the game's just over for you. Scoot your chair back.
Well, yeah, you
throw your
got
cards
things
in
like
there.
Chain of Vapor, right, to
Yeah.
help, or Besage you to try to deal with these problems. So
and they definitely aren't going to disproportionately set you back in regards to the rest of the table.
I
also
see this
matters.
as like, man, the like the Cursed Totem might be like the world's tallest dam, but it's like held up by like sticks and like nothing, like hot glue and like, and then as soon as that thing goes, the floodgates are open. Like
The
this
flood
deck is
collars
gonna
are open.
So we talked a lot about the deck. Can we talk about like your take on it, like the two of you, since you guys are playing it, and like what sort of changes you made or why you made the changes?
You've been playing a little the deck a little bit longer than I have, so I would
Eric's
love
up.
to
Let me-
hear.
Let me switch over to.
Yeah, she Kitsa on my Kitsa till I Kitsa.
I switched over to Jason. Sorry.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, here's
Or I
here's
guess we can
here's our
compare,
split.
right?
Yeah.
I'm still on the Chatterstorm. Joseph's been feeding me the copium on the sudden substitution. Kind of like it because this deck just only makes mana, and it's a pretty game-changing spell. I think everything like is pretty normal in this like comparison.
Would you rather have your Consphinx or one of my storm copies of Chatterstorm? I'll answer that for you. Sudden substitution.
Yeah.
A lot of the influence from my list came from Lamore's cards, recent iterations. He's been testing a lot of crazy stuff with tokens. So he's on like Geode, Moag Ancient, like all this wild stuff. But Reset, I think, is one of the more interesting ones that's a part of the list up there in the top left.
I think Breeze Caller is actually the best card in
It's
his
so
deck. It's
cool. So
gas.
the combo, if you're unfamiliar with it,
Yeah, I don't
is,
know.
is
Tell
so it has the ability you
Can you
pay,
can you just tell me what the card does?
so the card, it has the ability that you can pay 2 mana. You don't have to tap. You just pay 2 mana. Return target land to your hand. Untap target land you control. So the loop is, right, you have Gaia's Cradle and Talon Gates out with creatures that generate like at least 6-ish creatures out. So you tap Gaia's Cradle for 6 mana.
At 6 mana, you can phase every creature out, and at 7, you make infinite mana.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Talon Gates is what you can return to hand with a Borrow. Untapping Gaia's, then you can tap Gaia's to activate enough mana to use the Talon Gates ability to put it in.
Oh.
And so it's all based off of activated ability. So Curse Totem would be pretty bad here for us.
This almost seems like Moloku might fit in this deck.
Potentially could.
Makes birds.
I think it
Birds.
it makes a token. That reminds me of, I used to and still sometimes play Kodama Thrasios. I know there's a color overlap with those two commanders, but it's a pretty neat deck. It's a lands deck. It's a lands combo deck, and you have an outlet and command. And Kodama with Moloku, you can create a token, return a land to your hand, and then with the Kodama trigger, you put the land back, and then you continue the process, or you do it with a bounce land and like a mana generator, like Lotus Cobra.
Yeah.
You can go infinite. So the Breeze Caller, it seems like you guys have found your own way to make that sort of combo happen.
It's very, very similar in that most of it's land based, and while it does require some creatures, it also isn't super costly to run into the deck, because even if you don't have enough creatures to do the whole like either infinite or pseudo infinite, if you're in the middle of a counterspell war and you're like locked in on green mana, this is a really easy way to just get an extra like blue or an extra like red, whatever you need, which if you're in like the last turn of a game really matters. And so
the other thing is this isn't like any casts, like it doesn't trigger any Mystic stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the Breeze Caller is blue as well. So on the off,
the Force of Will.
Yeah, and
look, I mean that's a joke we always make, right? But like it's true.
It's
super true. If your density of blue is really really high, you can start to run things like Commandeer. I don't think this deck does, but you can more easily pitch to Force of Will, Force of Negation, things like that, or Chrome Mox or whatever you have. But that's something I've been trying to do in like my wrong side list, where I have an extremely high density of blue spells, so that I have those consistent Commandeers and things like that. But it's nice that this is a blue card, not a green one.
Another peculiar include is I have Traverse the Ulvenwald, another card that
What the hell does this thing do?
Yeah, this one was a Lumra favorite for a while.
Search your library for a basic land, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle.
Pretty good. But if you have Delirium, you can search for any land or any creature. And so one of the things that make this card super good is this deck weirdly cares about basic lands a lot. And so this not only increases your ability to keep more aggressive starting hands, but also if you get it later into the game, instead of just getting a basic forest, it gets you that Breeze Color.
How soon before we run that elf or whatever that turns all your lands basic?
The Dream Root
Druid?
Purifier, Root Path Purifier.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jason is like, I could turn Cradle into a basic.
I'm gonna Blood Moon myself. No, that's not what it does. But another version that people have been running from Murder at Karlov Manor is Analyze the Pollen, which has, I believe, Collect Evidence. So you you exile 8 mana worth of spells, but then it's very similar to Traverse, where if you don't have like the special effect, it just gets a basic. But if you do, it tutors for like 80% of your deck.
I think this is a really good deck for stock up.
Their stock up copium is crazy.
Ooh.
Dude, stock up is an insane card. I had it's funny. I cast it in the game against Raul, and he goes, "What does that do?" I said, "I'm gonna look at the top 5 and put 2 in my hand." He goes, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's literally what it says." He read the card and he goes, "Holy shit! Like that card's really good." And I'm like, "Yeah, most decks don't want to cast it because it's 3 mana or whatever, but like this deck seems like it could afford 3 mana.
A 3 mana card that is really good in this list is also Frantic Search. That's a great example of, and this is where I might depart from a lot of Rog Thrass players, and that's okay. They are probably correct. But Frantic Search is a card that goes infinite with Kitza if you have a Manamo in play. Because you untap 3 lands. One of them is Manamo, which lets you untap Kitza. And then let's say you have like Guy's Cradle or anything else, and you can just keep comping the Frantic Search to loot through your entire deck.
Wild. We found another way to put...
Oh my god, we broke another Kitza. We broke Kitza again.
Whoa. But I think that's a great... of like Kitza and Frantic Search are both cards. But when we were playing in the game on Saturday, I had Kitza out. And like... Kitza needed to be removed, and Austin was on Glarb, and he was like, "I do not want to use."
Evan was on Glarb.
What was Austin on?
Also
Master
Glarb.
of Keys.
Oh, yeah,
he was on
okay.
Master of Keys. So I don't remember if he was. It was Amphibian Downpour, was it, that he was casting? But he was like, I don't want to get rid of either one of these. Like this is not what I want to be using my removal spells on. But he did, which is a great example that maybe it's a good card.
Yeah. This deck is starting to feel like that's a good card podcast.deck. Because those guys love to brew and they love to include all these like weird cards.
They talked about Song like a month ago.
Yeah.
And all the reasons they talked about it are like reasons why it's really great in here.
And like reason why it's not good in other decks. Like it's good. It's really good in this deck.
Other decks. But yeah, I think that
Let's play some Yidris.
I already won a tournament on Yidris.
Dude,
yeah.
someone else didn't. Someone
I
else win a
beat you
tournament?
with Yidris.
Someone else gets
No,
won a
we
tournament
drew.
with Idris.
No. I mean, like in the tournament.
We drew in that game.
I know, but in the tournament, I beat you.
Oh, sure.
Like overall.
Oh, okay, Mister.
Yeah,
I won
yeah.
the tournament. Ooh.
Hey, look, I'll take my wins against Jason where I can get them. You know, whether it's in game or just overall. Like I'll take them.
Any deck that's in green, I could gush about all this random tech forever. But Lamora has been talking on social media. He's going to be releasing a Rog Thrass guide here pretty soon. There's also the interview with MTG Basics. We're going to keep playing. We're going to keep talking about it. For all those people who are like really interested in Rog Thrass specifically, I think those are some good resources. But in general, something I've been taking away from this is that there's plenty of room in CDH left for innovation and creativity.
Yes. I have one more thing to talk about.
Oh yeah.
All right. I've been playing Krark. I think Krark is awesome.
The Krarkening is happening.
Krark struggles from a lot of things, especially in 2-color with Krark Sakashima, where you play Krark first, Krark dies, and you go, damn, I'm sad. I've been playing 3-color Krark, and I think 3-color Krark is better because you play Ristic first, or you play your value engines. You try to establish like the strong parts of your color shell, and then you play Krark later to help turn the corner and close out the game. This deck could, in theory, have Rograk be replaced with Krark.
Uh-oh.
Dude, let's add Manamorphose.
Yeah.
Let's add Guttural Response.
So,
Good shot.
do I think it would be as good as this deck? Probably not.
I think Rograk is just inherently a broken card, and it adds so much consistency to the deck.
I'm with you on all of that in Krark, except for the consistency part. I think Krark is extremely broken, especially when combined with doublers. So if you're able to have these doublers, I think there's a good amount where we could play Roaming Throne, Harmonic Prodigy, Veyron.
You are in a lot of creature tutors, especially tutors to the
A
battlefield.
lot of creature tutors.
We should make a Krark podcast.
Whoa.
Krark cast.
Pod Krark.
But I think there's a deck or a version of this archetype.
The thumbless. No, my podcast. Get on the mic.
It's like
We recorded a whole podcast, but we lost the coin flip. We didn't start.
no, I think there's a version of this deck where you could run Krark as the commander besides Thrasios, and run largely the same strategy where you go, okay,
Wait,
I'm
without
just gonna,
Thrasios?
No, with Thrasios.
Oh, okay. I was like, without Thrasios?
No.
Like
Just
Rograk,
just
Krark?
Krark. Just Krark. No one else.
You run largely the same strategy of I have all these cards that don't do anything, but you're already running a Krark staple in Frantic Search. So like, if you like Frantic Search and you go, I have Krark and Cradle and I have all these things, I can make even more mana. I can make even more mana faster.
I mean, it's definitely, this is a deck that's very stormy, and Krark is a very stormy commander.
Yeah.
You definitely would lose some of that speed with Rograk, and while you are losing a little bit of consistency, it could potentially elevate the ceiling of the list. I don't know. It could be worth brewing.
Krark in the 99 incoming?
Well, that's actually interesting too. But then he just dies, and you have like a lot of cards that don't do anything.
I'm gonna Eldritch Evolution Rograk, and you are never gonna guess what I'm getting.
Yeah. Well,
he
anyway.
has two hands.
Anyway,
that is really interesting.
that's kind of my musing for the deck. I think that there's a lot to go on here, and like you said, there's a lot of creativity happening, which is super awesome to see. It's got my wheels turning, especially in maybe a different direction, but. I think the deck will continue to perform well, and I'm sure we'll see lots of like little standard staples that are going to make the deck and just tune it up and turn it up to 11.
Yeah, well, I'm planning on tanking the deck's win rate at this EG.
Oh, cool. Are you going to tank this deck's
No,
win
I
rate?
don't have all the cards for it.
You don't have a Thundertrap Trainer?
Oh my god.
You don't have a Song of Creation?
I don't have a Relic of Legends.
Well, if you have any of those cards that Jason listed, please mail them.
Directly to Enchanted Grounds, and we will pick them up in
They'll
short
definitely
order.
get here in time. Wink. No, please don't do that. Please,
Yeah.
please.
Eric doesn't want to lose to me on it.
No, it's you would kick my ass on that list. But
Anyway.
it's I've really enjoyed getting the chance to kind of like look through the list, both leaning on your experience playing it, and then also I think you guys have a lot of experience in 3-color piles. Logan, congrats again to Pigeon, our Denver local, but also just a lot of pilots are picking it up right now.
Yep.
And I think this both shows that there's more innovation, both in Teamer, potentially with decks like Rog Thrass, but also just the meta in general. I think it's a really good time to be playing CDH.
100%. Well, hopefully you stuck around with us for this long ass video about nothing. And if you'd like to see the three of us yap more in person, comment below and tell Jason that he needs to show up more.
Comment your top 10 mental missteppable targets, please.
I think by the time this video is out, we'll have that out. But so check out that video.
Yeah.
But even
now,
if we don't,
now we can start asking our viewers to go watch the mental misplay video, which
mental misplay. That's another YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, there is a video of him playing Lumra. But
mental missteppable
He's too
spells.
excited about the Lumra.
Dude, anytime we talk about anything in green, I'm like, I wonder if a bear could fit in here.
All right. Well, that's all for now for us. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Bye,
See you
guys.
next time. Oh God, I gotta stop it.
Oh God.